So I've been wanting to do a 24-hour reading challenge. Actually, not really. I tried to do one a few days ago and then I was like, I can't do it because 24 hours is a really long time, but you know what, I would do it for the plot and so that I will be able to read more books than I possibly can. 24 hours is just like a really long time, as we all know, so I don't really know if I can handle it, but I will try my best. The way that I'm doing this video is I'm basically just gonna time whenever I read and then that will equal to 24 hours because I don't think I can read for 24 hours straight. I know that if I do that my brain will probably explode. The first book I'm reading is called The Son of Silver Flame Like Night. I'm reading this book for a video, so I'll probably talk more about this book in that one, but so far it's pretty interesting and I'm loving it. It's basically set in China where we have two groups called the 𝐸𝐻s and the 𝐸𝐻s, and there's this very interesting magical system where the 𝐸𝐻s, they use their magic through like qi, and the 𝐸𝐻s, they get their magic through like metal, which I don't really understand how that works, but it sounds really cool. And so far I'm really loving it because the writing is really amazing. So I'm hoping to get through it today and read as much as I possibly can. Reading Son of Silver Flame Like Night. I feel like this took me longer to read than I expected, but to be honest, at the same time, I feel like the book was somewhat slow, but not really. Like the pacing of it was good, but I think the writing just made it kind of hard to read, and because of that, I felt a little bit bored, which is why it took me a little longer to read because I wasn't super excited. But overall, I did really enjoy this book. I don't really know how I feel about the ending. There was a lot of things that happened in the ending. The next book that I'm going to be reading is The Stolen Heir. This is also for another video that I'm making. I am pretty excited to read this book because I've been wanting to read it for a really long time, and I read The Cruel Prince ages ago. I reread it, I think maybe last year or like 2 years ago, can't really remember, and I did really like The Cruel Prince, so hopefully I will like this book. And I loved it. I loved it so much. It was just so easy to fly through, and when I put the book down I wanted to pick it up straight away because it was just so interesting and it called my name. Okay, like I just had to read it. So I read a little bit yesterday and then I read most of it today because it was so easy to fly through and it was such a good book. Like the ending was everything to me, and now I really want to read the next book. Luckily it comes out this year, so I don't have to wait that much. It comes out literally in March, so in March I will read that book. But honestly, I looked at the cover of the second book and I was kind of like, I don't know why, it looks kind of ugly to me, but you know what, it's okay. I still have a long way to go in terms of reading. 17 hours to be exact. Because I feel like I've been reading a lot of fantasy books, I think I've only read like one romance book this year, but I want to read another romance book because I need something like a light, something fluffy. I was thinking of reading Crescent City, but then I was like, that is too much for me after reading The Stolen Heir. So I'm gonna be reading this book called By the Book. I don't know if it's a good book, never heard anyone talk about it. I tried starting it before last year and then I read the first page and I was like, I'm not really into it right now, so I kind of stopped reading it, but hopefully I will get into it. I finished reading buy the book and I accidentally left the timer running for an extra like 30 minutes, so I'm just gonna ignore that and just like add it to the time, I guess. But I really loved By the Books more than I actually expected to. It's mainly focused around friendship rather than the romance, but the romance is like so subtle that it's so good, if that makes sense. Like Alex and Mary, they had like chemistry with each other. I literally ate every scene up. However, I feel like one of my main issues when it comes to romance is whenever it's like the male lead but we don't get any of his perspective, it always confuses me on how he ends up liking the female lead, because where was the signs? It's just like him liking her all along, but why does he like her? When does he like her? And I feel like there were certain things in this book pertaining to their relationship that was a little bit unexplained. But overall, I did really enjoy this book. It was very fun to read. I basically flew through it and I read it like on the train, and I was like desperate to finish this book, right? So when I had to like get off the train, I was pretty sad. The next book that I'm going to be reading is Crescent City, The House of Earth and Blood, which is the first book of the Crescent City series. Sarah J Maas's most recent book in part of like the Crescent City series just came out, so I wanted to read that book, but because I don't remember anything of what happened in the first and second book, I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just reread the whole series. Okay, so I ended up changing my mind about reading House of Earth and Blood because I seriously was like, I cannot go through that whole thing again. I just feel like it's a massive book, and I remember the first time that I read it, I had so much difficulties going through it because of certain events that happened, and I was like, do I really want to put myself through that? No, because I feel like this is one of those series that you only read once and that I personally don't ever want to read again, if that makes sense. So I think I'm gonna either read a summary or watch a summary video of what happens in the books, because I know that there are some out there, and then I'll read the last book in another video. But the book that I'm going to be reading next is called The Little Mushroom, which this book was actually recommended to me by Goodreads because I think I read Heaven's Official Blessing and then they were like, you might like this book. I saw a little bit of the manhwa and I looked at the fan art on Pinterest and it looked so scrumptious. The way that they were drawn, it was so good. I've also been wanting to read this book for a pretty long time. It's been in my TBR collection for a while and I've been thinking about reading it this whole entire time, so I don't know why I've waited, but I'm really excited to finally get the chance to read this book. I know I'm gonna love it. Like I already know. Mushroom, which I really love this book. The plot of it is very interesting. It's basically about this mushroom who turns into a human by absorbing like someone's memories or something like that. And in this world, basically there's a bunch of mutations and the humans have to go out, hunt these mutations down and kill them. But obviously there is a risk of mutating yourself. And it's so interesting, and plots like this, I eat them up, especially because when it comes to anime books, a lot of them are focused on cultivation rather than like sci-fi books. So this one was kind of like a breath of fresh air. This is like one of those instances where I'm kind of like, oh, I should have read this book a little bit earlier because I knew I was gonna like it. But then again, it could have been the perfect time for me to read it. I don't know if it's not obvious, but I'm gonna be reading the second book because the first book, it was so good. Like I literally just want to sit down and keep reading it, and I cannot wait to find out what happens in the second book, so I have to read it as soon as possible. I finished reading Little Mushroom, which I absolutely loved. It's the perfect combination of action and romance, and the romance is so subtle, but at the same time not. I don't even know how to explain it, but the way that the romance was written was so good, and this is definitely one of those books that I would go back and read later on. I liked how the plot wasn't super dragged out because it's set in this like post-apocalyptic world, and it's not like super complicated, but we get introduced to a lot of amazing characters. Love the main characters. It's such a cute little book. The next book that I'm going to be reading is Frostbite, which is the second book to the Vampire Academy series. I read the first book last month, really enjoyed it, and then I was like, oh, let me continue on with the rest of the series. I remember a little bit of what happened at the end of this book. It was sad, I'm pretty sure. It made me cry, but I read a little bit of it already, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I have around like 2 hours and something minutes until I'm done with this challenge, so I'm super excited. But overall, I feel like I've read a great amount of books in this video. I finished the 24-hour reading challenge and it was actually a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I think the last time that I did it, I just had so much pressure to read a certain amount of books, and because of that I didn't really enjoy it. I did end up finishing Frostbite, which I didn't think I was going to finish it before 24 hours, but I think I was just so into it, I read it super quickly. The ending made me like full on sob. The tears were streaming down my face. It was a lot emotionally. I'm literally gonna read the next book after I finish this video because there's something about this series that's like so addictive. I mean, it's a vampire book. There's nothing more you could ask for, but also the romance in this book, like I would not condone the certain, I guess, trope in real life because I hate it. But like in this book, I don't know how to explain it. It could be the setting or something, but it kind of makes me giggle, even though maybe I shouldn't. But I'm sorry. But that's it for today's video. 24 hours reading done. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to subscribe, please do. If you don't want to, it's okay. And I will see you guys in another video.